Hey there, everyone. This month, July 2025, is a big month indeed for humanity. And there's a lot that the stars have to say about what's happening right now. So I just want to jump right into it and share the energy update for July 2025. So, the first thing, I kind of want to back up a little bit because 2025 has had some pretty powerful energetics already. We had Pluto moving into Aquarius. It's a planet of transformation and change into a new sign, which is all about people, the collective technology. There's a big transformation that is happening. We also had Saturn and Neptune right near each other in the sky move from Pisces into Aries. Saturn's all about structures, power, authority. Neptune is all about dreams and intuition and feeling and spirituality. Those two are dancing around each other right now in a conjunction um, that's dissolving a lot of structures in our world, that is changing a lot of things. And then this month, we have the final of the outer planets moving into a new sign, Uranus moving into Gemini. All of these together, these big outer planets, anytime one of them shifts into a new sign, we have big energetic shifts that take place on the planet, and they tend to mark periods of transformation or at least big changes in energy. But the fact that all of these planets are moving through brand new signs and their energetics are very different, we're talking more air and fire, we're actually really stepping into a brand new epoch that's no different than the change from the industrial age. Uh, and in fact, we're kind of moving through our own industrial era. It looks more like AI and tech, of course. But there's a lot that's happening this month, all related to these big changes. And the final sort of changeover, click into place, is Uranus moving into Gemini. So let's get into the astrology by week here. So at the beginning of the month, July 4th, we have Venus conjunct Uranus in Taurus. And then Venus will be moving into Gemini the day after, and Neptune goes retrograde. So July 4th's energy is pretty strong. Of course, it's Independence Day in the United States. But when Venus, the planet of money and love and beauty and pleasure, comes together with Uranus, we can have sort of surprises. In Taurus, related to money. It's the final degree of Taurus, actually. So we could see something surprising around maybe money during this time. And Neptune, the planet of illusions and disillusionment and dissolving of borders and things like that, is also turning retrograde, inviting us to kind of look at what has happened the last few months. So July 4th actually is a little bit of a turning point. It's the beginning of the month, but it's a turning point that has us considering our relationships, what we value, what we ultimately want to create in our lives, and we could see some financial surprises around that time. It is possible. On the 6th of the month, Venus sextiles Saturn and Neptune and trines Pluto. This is a pretty strong energy for change. And also, this is the day that Uranus, outer planet Uranus, the planet of surprise and change, of shock, moves into the sign of Gemini. So the first couple of days of the month could bring surprising romantic encounters, surprising financial encounters, and these, of course, could be very good things. But when we have Uranus moving into Gemini, this is a big energetic change. For the past few years, Uranus has been in the sign of Taurus. Uranus, which is really all about surprise and innovation and change, is not comfortable in the sign of Taurus, which is very physical. What we have seen during its transit in that time is shifts with finance, shifts with money, shifts with property. In fact, um, We've seen shifts with cryptocurrencies, things like this were all related to Taurus. We also see a lot of a sort of financial grab, we'll say, for housing, stuff like this. Okay, breathe. When Gemini was moving through the sign of Taurus, we saw a lot of shifts and changes related to finance. We saw cryptocurrencies kind of come and boom a bit more. We saw changes in real estate, markets, things like this. Well, Uranus and Gemini energy is all about duality, twins. It's all about ideas. It's an air sign. And this is a 7-year cycle that we're stepping into with Uranus moving into Gemini that's likely to revolutionize things related to communication, science, technology, research, trade, but especially tech, all things related to the exchange of information. So we're probably very likely to see changes with social media, maybe new platforms, maybe different things, new technologies come alive. Now, we've already seen the rise of AI in the last few years, and this is likely to be exponentially growth or exponentially growing over the next few years. We're going to be connecting in ways that are very different. And ultimately, with Uranus and Gemini, it can't be predicted. So its energy is pretty scattered and volatile. And in the sign of Gemini, we're talking about duality, we're talking about communication. So, especially in the month of July, what you're likely to see and feel is that on the world stage, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of disclosure, there's a lot of stories, there's just a lot happening, and there's a lot of information being shared. It's going to be very, very, very important in the month of July, but actually, as we move toward the latter half of this year, is for us to be discerning about our mental intake. And what do I mean by that? The information that we're taking in, the information we're digesting, and that we're engaging with, it's going to be very, very important to exercise discernment because not everything that we hear is going to be true. And in the sign of Gemini, we're talking flip flop twins. So you might hear one thing one day, another thing another day. And Uranus in that sign is very fast moving. So we're talking about things changing literally overnight. With Uranus and Taurus, things are kind of slow moving and surprising, but in Gemini, life itself is likely to move much, much faster. Um, what I want to point out about Uranus and Gemini is that Uranus is actually in Gemini in the Sibley chart of the United States of America. So this is very interesting because the energetics of ideas, and in the US in particular, Gemini duality. We have Democrat, Republican, we have political ideas, we have that are divisive, we have areas of the country that are very divisive. Our country in the US is heavily identified with ideas and ideals, and it's actually this push and pull of ideals that are likely to get very, very activated. Some people are speaking of civil war or civil unrest. Very likely we're going to see some sort of a social revolution because this energy is tied to the American Revolution, the American Civil War, and when America got involved with World War II. So there is a war energy that is connected to this, and it's also very much an identity energy for the country of the United States. So we're going to see this sort of kick off now. The actual Uranus return for the US isn't until next year, so the summer of 2026 will be a very interesting time to talk about for sure, but we don't need to get there yet. And I am not here to share any sort of fear mongering. But what is important to understand is that the ideals of freedom, the ideals of sovereignty, the ideals of what our founding fathers created and fighting for freedom and fighting for our ideals are very, very present. And, you know, It doesn't really take a rocket scientist to see that these energetics are already kind of playing out. We've seen this happening on the world stage. We now have, not to get very political, but we've seen things in Iran right now, in the Middle East, in Israel, Palestine, Ukraine, but we're also seeing stuff right here in the US, in Los Angeles, where I'm recording this video. We're already starting to see social changes, social challenges, social unrest. And what's very interesting about this time, Saturn and Neptune together, we're starting to overcome our illusions related to structures, related to power, related to authority, and we're starting to see that you know what? Maybe our governments, maybe the people in charge, maybe our leaders don't actually have our best interests in mind. And what we espouse, what we say we want, what we say is important to us, um, isn't really happening. And so with Uranus moving into Gemini, there's going to be a lot more talk. There's going to be a lot more speaking out. There's going to be a lot more information to understand, but we have some really big energetics of social change and social unrest. I am certainly not advocating for war, and I don't even think that's necessary as part of human evolution. But no longer will it be appropriate for us to just sort of sit back and allow things to happen. You know, our world has gone through tremendous change since the year 2020, and even though there's a story, a version of reality that says we've come back to normal, we are far from that. There is no going back to normal. We never went back to what was before 2020. And that's a very good thing, actually, because the truth is we were living under a lot of illusions and a lot of lies and a lot of deception. And now, with Uranus, this final planet moving into a new sign, this is sort of the last hurrah, something we need to see, information we need to know. Now, what's interesting about Uranus, which is the planet of consciousness um, and awakening and these kinds of things, we're likely to see a lot related to our connection to the cosmos. If you're watching me, you probably know that I believe extraterrestrials exist, and I know that we're going to be learning a lot more about them and our own consciousness. I can't for 1 second believe that in the infinite universe that we're the only life forms that are advanced. That's not true. We're going to start to see more of this, which could be very surprising and will very much shift our perspectives on reality. But of course, also stuff to come up about our leaders and all that kind of stuff. So it's a change in epoch. It's a big shift in how we understand ourselves in the world. Now, what is a good thing about this is that there's been a lot of tension with Uranus and Taurus and a lot of holding, a lot of waiting. As Uranus moves into the sign of Gemini, there's going to be sort of a release. Now, mind you, this transit's going to last until 2033. Uranus takes 84 years to cycle around the zodiac. So when it comes back, it's pretty important. So the themes of individuality, innovation, shifts to our reality, definitely technological change, um, but rapid advancements in technology, AI, all this kind of stuff. What I would like to say to everyone is that it's going to be especially important to pay attention to your mental diet. What are you taking in? What information are you taking in? And also, how are you going to care for your mind, your mental state, all of that. And our relationship to technology is something that's definitely going to come to the fore over the next 7 years. You know, technology is really beautiful when it is in service to something. So, like if it helps us with our work or helps us to create. But if technology is pushed along without wisdom, that's a problem because we could end up becoming a slave to it. And many, many, many movies have been created of dystopian futures where we lose ourselves in tech. I don't think that needs to happen. But what will need to happen is for us as humanity to engage in discourse, engage in conversation. And Uranus and Gemini is going to ask us to do that, to talk, to communicate, to share ideas. Also, Uranus in the sign of Gemini in the United States chart has often um, marked periods where there's economic or fiscal change, so monetary policy changes. So we could also see some big economic shifts to come. Obviously, we're speaking about digital currencies these days. This is something that is likely in the next several months going to become like mainstream, or it already is mainstream, but what I mean by that is much more pressing. So financial policy changes are likely to happen as well. Monetary system changes are likely to happen. And of course, this would be more digital. But the big thing about the twins, bifurcation. There is sort of the opportunity to choose two different worlds. One that maybe is very technologically focused, one that is um, probably more control, and one that is more free, and one that is more organic. The real question here is going to come: what is your relationship to esoteric knowledge, so interior, what's true for me, and exoteric, what's outside of me? This duality between what's happening outside and what's happening inside is going to become really important for a lot of people, for all of humanity, actually, because we're kind of stepping into a sci-fi zone. What we thought was sort of our sci-fi future in film is very much going to come into being. Now, of course, I believe this is a great thing because we are living at a time of tremendous change and tremendous opportunity. So, by the 7th of the month, here we go. Things are shifting there, or things are shifting in the world. By the 10th of June, we have the full moon in Capricorn, which will invite us to ask ourselves and to see what's going on with the structures of our world, what's going on with our own personal responsibilities. On July 17th is a major astrological transit as well. So we have around the 7th and then the 17th with some of the most intense astrology of this year. On the 17th of July, Saturn and Neptune come together in their first conjunction in Aries. This is a historical turning point for us. The last time that Saturn and Neptune came together, they came together in Capricorn, which was in 1989. Around that time was the fall of the Berlin Wall, the collapse of the Soviet Union. Now, it'll be in Aries. And Aries is all about initiation and creation and something new, leadership of the self. It's going to be a very interesting time that we'll see uh, their conjunction, the exact conjunction won't happen again until February 20th. So we have a period between July 17th and February 20th where we're going to need to sort of revisit what are the structures of our world? What are our dreams? What is just an illusion? What's just a lie? Where are things falling apart? Where are structures falling? This is a period, for sure, of major transformation in leadership. Those that maybe have been working in the shadow, in darkness, lying, um, deceiving others, this energy is really going to push that. Those people are going to struggle hard. Those who are connected to their authentic selves and wanting to lead from a space of true alignment, this is a really beautiful window. So for the next 6 months, 7 months, we can expect to see a lot of disillusion of structures of power, of authority. This is, frankly, the mark of some really turbulent new beginnings. Why I say turbulent? Because things need to end first. And so it's funny, not funny. Saturn and Neptune together in the final degrees of Capricorn, excuse me, final degrees of Pisces, the last year or so, all of these shifts of major planets into new signs, it's like we've been dealing with this energetic pretty much the whole year, and even last year, of like things dying and ending while also new things being born. We are both dying and birthing at the exact same time. We are very much in birthing pains. Um, so anyway, this conjunction between Saturn and Neptune, the illusions of our world dissolving, collective dreams that don't really relate to reality, right? We have dreams and maybe visions of what it means to be an American, or what it means to be a human, or what it means to be whatever, that are not true, or our reality isn't exactly reflecting what we would ideally like to experience. So we'll see a lot of social and political structures come under a lot of pressure, severe pressure, in fact. And some of our old dreams, some of our old illusions are going to dissolve. They have to make space for what is new. Biggest thing in the month of July is to trust in your new beginnings and to trust in your own process, because I'm speaking sort of collectively here, but this is very much going to play out on an individual level. What is dying within you or within your life? What is shifting? What is changing? What's wanting to be born? And both of those things are happening at the same time. So can you trust that you're in an in-between state and you're actually being held by the universe in that in-between, even though it's crunchy and uncomfortable and we're not really sure and things are changing quickly? This energy of the month of July can be very, very chaotic. And I'm not saying that to you to create fear. Quite the opposite. My intention is to share with you that that's what this is. It's kind of messy, this birthing, this dying, new information, a lot of shifting, things happening fast. So please, take the time, the energy to care for yourself, to center yourself, to ground yourself. That's going to be wildly important this month. And to pay attention to how much time you're spending on technology or how much information you're seeing. I don't advocate for watching the news at all, but social media information is going to come through, but don't forget to take time to connect. A simple connection with nature, putting your feet on the grass or sitting and breathing, connecting with your body for a minute, 2, 3 minutes. Allowing yourself to come back into yourself is going to be really, really, really important. Towards the latter half of the month, on the 22nd, the sun will move into Leo. So it'll be Leo season. So this is more of a time to shine, to be seen, to share your information, to share your wisdom, to share what really matters to you. On the 23rd of the month, Venus will square Mars. Not the best energetic for relationships, frankly. It could be very challenging. It also could be very challenging related to finance and money. So I wouldn't necessarily sign contracts around that time, but understand that that is the case. The 24th and the 25th of the month also have some pretty intense energies. The 24th, we have the new moon in Leo that is opposing Pluto. So what needs to die within you so that the new you, the true you, the authentic you can come forth? And Saturn and Neptune are going to be involved in that new moon as well, trining and sextiling Uranus. It's a big moment of change. The question of who am I now? Where do I want to go? What do I want to create? How do I want to share my heart? How do I want to share my creative energy? Because a lot of stuff will have shifted in the first part of the month, that by the time we get to the new moon, it's going to feel like, okay, something's got to change. I've got to do something. And we're all going to feel that in our own ways. On the 25th, of the month, the sun will also be opposing Pluto. So there's a lot of transformation energy. By the end of the month, we're likely going to have more clarity about where we're going individually and collectively, but the first part of the month is very chaotic. So the biggest theme that I have for the month has to do with our mental diet. How are we caring for ourselves? How are we dealing with the information that's being presented to us? And with Saturn and Neptune retrograding this month as well, things are dissolving. Also, Neptune is related to water. So we could also see some challenges related to water. I don't want to create this, but things related to oceans, tsunamis, things like that, floods, water element that could probably play out in certain areas of the earth. So we are moving through a time of great change. And the month of July is in many ways the final catalyst, if you will, for a lot of things that have been underway for many years. And come this point forward, things are going to be moving very quickly. And as I mentioned, that energy can feel really chaotic. My invitation to you is, how do you relate to that? How do you relate to the idea of chaos? Are you feeling in your nervous system like, oh my God, I'm afraid, what the heck's going to happen? Yeah. Maybe it's time to do some deep digging. Maybe it's time to seek support. um, like from an astrologer myself, or some coaching personally if you're needing support in that way. But also know that for those of you that have been trying to create new projects and launch new things, new businesses, and do new things in the world, this is going to be a window where things will take off. Um, so, how are you relating to the idea of chaos and change? If it's a positive thing, then this month will bring opportunities for a lot of shifts and a lot of changes. And if you feel more limited by that, then, take a look at that. There's so much changing in the world and also within each of us. So if you're interested in understanding how these energetics of this month are going to play out in your chart and in your life, then I invite you to book a private astrology session with me, and I'd be happy to share about all these shifts. Otherwise, take care of yourself this month. It's going to be really interesting. Um, and I'll see you next month.